All right, Micah from the CCL. Now, our first couple videos talked some about what ministry isn't, and there's kind of some word salad going on there where you're like, is it this, or is it this, or is it this? And I believe everything I said, but a lot of what I was saying is that it was like it's not quite like this, it's not quite like this, it's not quite like this, and I would forgive you if you watch that video and you're like, well, what is it then, right? That's what I would have said if I watched that last video. Okay, it's not that, it's not that, it's not that, but what is it? And I really want to put to you the idea that ministry is really at the fundamental level being a shepherd. Being a shepherd. I think we live in a time when people think of ministers like there's a lot of like ministers of large churches that have book deals and endorsement deals, right? And they're on preaching circuits and they preach at conferences and they're on, they got great Instagram accounts and all these followers and stuff like that. And there's really a sense where ministers are like influencers or ministers or performers or things like that. And, I don't know what's in their heart and they can do whatever it is that God's calling them to do. But for my money, when I think of, man, is this person really ministering? The fundamental question is, are they shepherding? Are they shepherding? Now, there's a word that we use, like if you read some old English novel, and you imagine somebody's riding a train through the English countryside, and they look out and they see these gentle hills, and they would say, "Oh, it's a pastoral landscape, a pastoral landscape." And there's this word, pastoral, right? Pastoral ministry, pastor, right? Those kinds of words. And we might think, oh, well, I'm not a pastor. That's not, our church doesn't have a pastor. We have a minister. Or you might say, well, we have, to the extent that we have minister, a pastor, or somebody's doing pastoral work, maybe that's the elders are doing that or something like that. I don't know how your church talks about this, but here's what I know. A pastoral, the word pastoral just means good for shepherding, right? If you look at a field and it's a pastoral field, or if you look at a landscape and it's a pastoral landscape, what that is a landscape where it'd be a good place to raise sheep, right? It's a good place to raise sheep. Or if you're in a pastoral role, what that means is you're in a shepherding role. And I don't know how that makes you feel. If you might be say like, oh, that's not me, I'm not that. Or maybe you say, well, really in our system, the elders are really the shepherds. And I want your elders to be shepherds. I think that's great. Or maybe you say, oh, our senior minister or senior pastor, maybe you're using that kind of language. I don't care what language you're using around that, and I want your minister, your senior minister, I want your elders, all of them to be shepherds. But actually, I would argue that shepherding is the basic thing. It is the fundamental skill of all ministry. There is no ministry that's not shepherding ministry. And I've got friends that really strongly disagree with me on that, and I respect it. But I would say that basic shepherding skills are the foundations of ministry. If you can't do this, you don't get to do other things. Like if you don't have some basic shepherding skills or desires in you, then I don't really want. Maybe you're a great performer, and maybe your whole sermon is full of Instagram-worthy quotes. But man, if you don't have a shepherd's heart, I don't want to listen to you. Okay, shepherding is important, and for all of us, it's important that we not think that we're too good to be shepherds. Shepherds in the ancient world were the lowest of the low. David had all these sons. Jesse in the Old Testament had all these sons who were big and strong and mighty, and they're all great. And the lowest of the low of his sons was the one that he gave the job of being shepherd. It's because it's the least important job in the eyes of the world. It's the least important. Oh, well, you go off to war, and you guys take care of the thing, and you guys do over there, and whoever's left over, that's who will be the shepherd. And so it's significant that the one that Samuel anoints to be king of Israel starts out as a shepherd. And we see this several times throughout, and we're going to do an exercise today where we're going to look through times in Scripture where we say, okay, we're going to look at a passage and see how God continually looks at the leaders of his country and says, you guys are shepherds. Sometimes you're good shepherds, sometimes you're bad shepherds, but you're shepherds. We get to the New Testament, and Jesus talks about the importance of how he's a good shepherd. He's not a hireling, right? He's not anything except he's a good shepherd. And this willingness to do the work that often isn't really noticeable. Like if a shepherd is doing their job, you might not notice them well, because they're not up on a shepherd's probably not up on a stage, and everybody's not like flocking to them, huh? And looking at them. Oh, that's it. But actually, that's the fundamental job description that God gives us. Is not that we're here to be kings, not that we're here to be royalty, not that we're here to be served, but we serve. Not that we're here to be great hunters and overcomers, but really that we're here to be doing this humble thing of protecting the flock. So we're going to do a study on that. I'm going to give you some time this week to just look through and do kind of your own study of, it'll be guided, but we're going to look through some places in Scripture where shepherding seems to be a big deal. And so that's going to be a start to our work. Every week we're going to get into the Bible at least a little bit. And so this week we're going to look through shepherding. And so I just want you to understand that from my perspective, nobody's too important to be a shepherd. Nobody's work is better than shepherding. And if you just won't do this, if you don't have any of this in you, then most of the other things that happen in ministry you shouldn't do. This is the starting point of all ministry, is the willingness to be like Jesus, a good shepherd. And so we'll talk about that in some of the work you do this week, and we'll talk about it when we get together. Thanks, guys.